Welcome to this week's Concurrency Beer 30. I'm Nathan Lesnowski, Concurrency's Chief Technology Officer, and with me this week is Steve Campbell. Steve Campbell is a data and AI analyst with Concurrency. Welcome, Steve.
Hi, thanks. Good to be here.
Tell me a little bit about the beer you're drinking.
So this is Torpedo from Sierra Nevada.
Okay.
It's an IPA.
And how do you like IPAs?
Yeah, it's good. I quite like the beer here in America. So being from England, we don't get as many breweries like this.
So this is a proper beer?
Yeah, this is nice. You get a lot of variety here.
What do people who live in England say about our beer?
You know, I think beer's a learned taste.
Okay.
So it took me a couple of years, but you know, I think I've come around to the American beer. So.
Okay. I almost expect you to be like drinking a Guinness or something.
On some days.
Some days. Well, I'm having the same thing, so I guess great minds think alike. And I appreciate that it's not too fruity. It's kind of got a nice little bitterness to it, but it's not like too bitter, you know, in a sense. Right. Not like I drink this, it's like, I can't drink it. So it's a good beer. I appreciate it. All right. So we're here not just to talk about beer, but a little bit about data AI, Power BI, Power Platform. And you're doing a tremendous amount of work in the Power Platform space, particularly in Power BI and Power Apps. So I think the first thing I'd love to understand from you is, you know, people when they think Power BI, especially because of its history and where it came from and entered into the market, think visualization engine. They think like, is this just like a new version of reporting services? Is it just kind of like a Tableau? Like, tell me a little bit about if that's a misconception or not, and where we should go with our understanding of Power BI.
Sure, I mean, I definitely think there is some misconception about that. I mean, definitely it is a great visualization tool. You know, you can do a lot in it. There's a lot of interactivity. But I think it goes a lot further than that, really. The fact that it runs on an analysis services engine, it's a really, really powerful tool. A lot of the Power BI is actually in the data transformation side. So people don't kind of realize the whole hidden side to Power BI, which is the Power Query, the data transformation. So really looking at a lot of different data sources and kind of combining them together. This is typically you'd have to go to third-party companies to do this in the past. It's a really difficult tool. And a lot of analysts typically did this in Excel, trying to load all their data into Excel, merging the data, you know, written a lot of macros and had a lot of headaches to that. So I think probably one of the most powerful parts of Power BI is this new engine kind of in the background that's built on, you know, SQL Server analysis services. Really powerful, tried and tested tool. But you can kind of merge, blend your data, and this all has a really easy GUI, like a one-click kind of transformation engine in the back. So I think with that, how you can transform your data, and then you have the visualization tool, which when you think Power BI, you think of the pretty dashboards and the nice graphs. That's on top of it, and that's a very important part. But this behind the scenes is probably the most important and most powerful engine in Power BI.
So in a sense, it started with maybe how do I visualize data for somebody, but it's really become more about bringing the data closer to the person who's trying to use that data to make an important decision and then do something.
Yeah, exactly. And Microsoft have a good process on this, saying we're really trying to deliver power to the end user. And this is trying to get away from the typical siloed approach, where IT own the data warehouse and the business users, you know, get limited data. Often you'll be going to websites, getting a data export, doing a lot of work in Excel, something like that. This is really trying to bring those two worlds together. So we're saying, you know, you're a business user. IT can still manage parts of it, you know, set up measures, set up models like this. But now the business user can also get involved in this. They can start doing their own analysis really, really quickly. And I think it's a really powerful tool that is changing the way that business users can access data.
Yeah, I think the surprising thing with Power BI has been how quickly I've seen people within these businesses that aren't IT people or even technology people building models and visualizing information and leveraging their data in ways that they never would have used it before, and really serving themselves to be able to see that information. Whereas maybe 5 years ago, it seemed like they'd be asking IT to change a report and reporting services for them because they wanted a view.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good point. And I think, you know, this is it comes with a warning as well, which is the business users, if you want to be, you know, an expert in Power BI, there's a warning and opportunity. You really have to learn, some basics about data modeling on all of this. Once you learn that, and if you are interested in learning Power BI, you can build some really powerful models really easily, as you say, very quickly, and essentially get to the exact kind of, data, the numbers, the tools that you're looking for very, very fast.
Where are you seeing AI being embedded within that process now? And there's some new capabilities being released around AI Builder and the extent to which it's becoming part of the engine versus something that's always on the side.
Sure. I think Power BI has always had a little bit of AI. They've just kind of been testing it in the background. In the last few months, they're really pushing this. As you say, they've got this AI Builder now. They've currently released they've got some text analytics directly in the Power Query. So this is really, really powerful. This is a one-click kind of natural language processing tool that in one click you can add this to your model, which is pretty amazing. And I see this, adding a lot more different capabilities into this. The other thing they're also doing is having AI visuals. And I think this is a real game changer because it's something I've not seen really in any other products. So these are visuals, these are graphs, which actually have artificial intelligence built into the graphs. So they're dynamic as users are interacting with them. They're clicking to drill into a graph. It's actually running artificial intelligence algorithms in the background. So this is now bringing the AI right to the business users, giving you a lot more insight than you would normally ever have.
So what's an example of that in practice? I'm clicking in the graph, right? Where is AI being embedded within that process, providing me a benefit?
So a lot of the main ones they have right now, they have this key influences visual, for example. So you could have a load of different categories, and you could see something like, what's your sales? As you're interacting with this is running artificial intelligence and saying, what's really affecting this? For example, a year-to-year sales. Now that's a really powerful tool to have all these different filters applied to interact with it and to instantly see an artificial intelligence algorithm saying what's the biggest thing impacting what you're most interested in.
Got it, that's really helpful. What are the biggest things that someone needs to be watchful for when they're starting to leverage democratization of data, or the spreading of data amongst the organization? What are the things that they need to think about, control, manage, understand?
So I think we have, as I mentioned, the models in the back end of the Power BI. And as much as we don't want to silo things, I think we still need some IT process, some business process. What's really another great thing about Power BI that not a lot of people realize, so you can build your data models, one group can own this, and the data governance, they can own the models, the measures, so that we're all looking at, the single source of the truth. And this allows, our business units can all connect to this model, build their own reports, and have that data governance and that security set up, and the standard measures, so everyone's looking at the same numbers. So I think that's a really powerful tool, and something that not a lot of people do, not just trying to build all your own models, to have an IT or to have a group to look after that.
Got it. Is there a way where, you mentioned you gotta know what you're doing sometimes, right?
Right.
Where once you define something that you know is good, this is our financial model. We shouldn't have any other financial models. This is the one we have. And everybody can visualize off of it, but this is what you should be basing it off of, and it's kind of fixed, and only certain people modify it. Are there ways to implement those kinds of controls, protections, and so on, and what's being built?
For sure, and I think it's best practice to actually do this. So there's a few ways. My favorite way is you can actually separate these models from the Power BI file, host them in analysis services, and use all these tools that we've been using in Azure, analysis services models, and Azure SQL databases, data factories, to build all of this. And then we allow users to directly connect to this. So they don't have to go through the process of having to learn how to build their own models, if maybe that's not their skill set. The other thing is you can just directly connect to other Power BI models. So if somebody has built, as you said, this great financial model in Power BI, they can post it into the service, and let different business units just directly connect to that, which means then we've controlled the measures and everything, and we know everyone's getting to write on the same data.
In your mind, you've been doing a lot of work that combines the power of Power BI with the rest of the Power Platform.
Sure.
And Power Apps, robotic process automation, ends up being a component of the difference that we can make in an organization. Can you tell me a little bit about your perspective on the relationship between Power BI and the rest of the Power Platform?
Sure. I think this is one that now Microsoft are working very, very hard to integrate and doing a very good job at this. Recently, Power Apps is now a standard visual in Power BI. So any Power App that you've made, you can actually have this directly in your dashboard. For one, this overcomes a huge ask, which is a write-back function. So you can have a Power BI dashboard, and people can directly enter data through a Power App. What's really awesome about this, they may not even know that there's a Power App in the visual. They just see a table. So it's a really cool and seamless process. And then with Power Automate, formerly Microsoft Flow, these can set up very easy processes. So you could have someone to write back, but you could have it as an approval process. So you don't just allow it to directly view your database. You can say this person's gone to their dashboard, they've entered this information through the Power App. The Power Flow sets off an approval process. It could be approved, and then it will flow back into the database and back through Power BI. So it's this seamless integration that's going very, very well together.
Awesome. One of the things I feel like I really like about Power Apps is how it's similar to Power BI, except maybe even broader, is it enables the citizen application developer to be able to make a difference with process automation and to transform the way that they interact and do processes within the organization. What are some examples that you've seen of how organizations have taken something that they were doing maybe manually or Excel or rinky-dink process, and they moved it into something much more sophisticated or capable with a Power App?
Sure. I think one of the most common uses of Power Apps that I've seen, and is one of the biggest asks right now at the moment, is something just like a simple form entry. These are things that, maybe they have a lot of different business people. They're out to their clients. They want to enter some information. They've seen something, want to upload a photo. This, typically to build this app, it might take a lot of time to build it in traditional kind of methods. And depending on what your data source is, it might be a little more difficult. Power Apps, as they grow, and especially as more and more things are being added to their data sources, and now with the introduction of the common data service and the common data model, where all your data can live in one area, this is really, really easy to do. People can build these sort of apps, in a few days, have this ready to roll out, and let their business units go and enter data.
So, what makes Power Apps in your mind something that's really attractive and easy to start leveraging? Is it, what are the qualities of it that make it a platform that's really attractive to the business?
So I think for me, the reason I've fallen in love with Power Apps is just the flexibility. I went to a conference the other month, and they had a demo of how Virgin Airlines were using this. And they were actually using this to scan people's boarding passes to let them into lounges. As I say, you can have it as a data entry. You can pretty much do anything you want. I've seen people build out full websites in a Power App, or have a typical app on your phone. So there's huge and vast diversity and flexibility in what you can do. Makes it really, really attractive. And all of this comes with, I would say, very little coding need. You can build a very simple app with no code. With a little bit of code, you can build quite a complex app. So this is, again, similar as we said to the Power BI, now available to the average business user, which opens up a whole market and gets these apps developed really quickly.
Yeah, I feel like it took something that people talk about this idea of robotic process automation, right? And we've been in this space for a while, leveraging other partners that have done a very good job of building sophisticated processes that are being automated for various purposes. And there's probably still a reason for a lot of those organizations to still exist and for them to have those sophisticated processes. But I think what's happening here is you have commoditization of tooling that brings that down to the common business individual, lets them participate within that process, and then when it gets more sophisticated, it maintains the same tool chain, just at a higher level of capability. You know, like from the flow from Power Apps into higher capability Power Apps, Power Automate, or like simple Power BI, more complicated Power BI, and then like, is that kind of what you're seeing?
Yeah, I would 100% agree with that. And I think Microsoft has kind of marketed this as a low code and no code tool. Same with Power BI, you can do everything drag and drop.
Yeah.
And this, as you say, opens it up to kind of, most business users. A lot of people can actually build this. But there still is a lot of availability, if you like to code, to write a lot of code.
Absolutely.
Most of my day is building Power BI. I'm writing code, and the same with Power Apps. So you have this whole level of getting in with a basic business user, but if you really want something custom, really advanced, you still have that opportunity. And I think that goes in with that whole flexibility. And that's the reason why you can do so much with these products. And now that they're combining this even more and making their seamless integration, and with introduction to their chatbots and their automated agents.
I didn't mention that. Yeah, that's great.
Really powerful new tools as they're adding, and the frequency of the updates as well helps a lot with these new tools.
Awesome. What are the best ways to get started with Power Apps in your mind? Power Automate.
So I think with Power Apps, I would definitely say just hit up YouTube, watch a couple of videos to get a simple introduction, then just go start making apps.
Yeah.
Really, it's a tool that maybe you want to learn where the buttons are, what to click, but it's really one I would say, and I would love to do. Just start throwing stuff on, testing it out, try and break things, try and do something silly, and then I think that's the best way to learn.
So when I was teaching my daughter to use Power Apps. She's 13, and we came up with this idea to track the mischief that my 1.5-year-old gets into. So I originally called it Benedict Bad Boy. My wife didn't like that, so we shifted it to Benedict Mischief, and it's an app to track. Anytime he was throwing eggs off of our kitchen counter on the ground because he thought it was funny. So we see it, and she enters it into the form, and the system tracks it, and we have Power BI that looks at when Benedict gets in trouble. It's exactly something silly, right? Learning to build something.
The sillier the better,
yes.
And the sillier, the funnier that you find it in, the more you're willing to learn. It's all good to do it for the business, when it comes. When you're trying to learn and you're trying to get into that, something that's going to be entertaining to you, I think is definitely the best way to learn.
Absolutely. There's even a feature here called AI Builder, which functions within Power Apps, where you can apply very basic AI models to the Power App platform, which is super cool.
Yeah, so they right now they're typically around some image detection, so form detection, stuff like that. I definitely see this thing as they're going to be pushing Microsoft integrating AI into everything they do. It's definitely a move I see them making. So I see this space really growing.
More of a verb than a noun.
Yes.
Awesome. What makes you love doing Power Platform work, or exposing data, exposing applications to business users? What makes this be something you want to get up in the morning and do?
So I think with the tools available and the kind of work we're doing, it's just great to kind of show people insights into their data that they didn't know. To really, essentially what we're doing by building these apps and these dashboards, we're saving people time.
Yeah.
We're showing them what they want to see, quicker, easier, better. And I think people are really appreciative of that. And if you put a bit of effort into making this into a really good Power App, into a really good Power BI, people find this really useful. And I think that's the best kudos you could ever receive is seeing how much time and effort you save people.
Awesome. Well, thank you for stopping by today. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
And we'll see you next week on Concurrency Beer 30.